Sometimes a night that is supposed to become a warm memory turns into the final page of someone's life. No warning, no obvious danger, just one moment when the world suddenly stops feeling safe. An ordinary restaurant, the warm air of Miami. Two teenagers in love, laughing and talking about the future. They had no idea someone was already watching them. In late April of 2002, the young couple decided to celebrate their anniversary. The evening was exactly what they had imagined. Dinner in a cozy restaurant, long conversations, music, and dancing. Everything felt calm and familiar. No tension, no signs of danger. When they stepped outside, the night was warm and quiet. They didn't feel like going home right away, so they decided to take a short walk. The conversation drifted back to the future, school, jobs, dreams, plans. Then the conversation stopped. Someone was already waiting near their car. 5 young strangers appeared almost out of the darkness. They surrounded the couple without raising their voices. Without creating a scene. Everything felt quick and cold, like a rehearsed routine. They were simply ordered to get into a nearby van. When the boy tried to argue, he was struck. One hit was enough to make it clear, resistance was pointless. The girl was grabbed roughly by the arms and pulled toward the vehicle. Within seconds, both of them were being forced inside. They were ordered to lie on the floor so no one could see them through the windows. The doors slammed shut, the engine started, and the van pulled away. That was the beginning of a ride that would end in death. Later, the boy would be found with multiple stab wounds. He would survive, but the trauma would stay with him for years. He would need long-term psychological treatment just to regain some sense of normal life. His girlfriend, however, would not be saved. Her name was Annamariaangel. She was born in Medellin, Colombia, in the mid-1980s. Her mother, Margarita Osorio, worked as a schoolteacher and tried to give her daughter a peaceful childhood. But at that time, Colombia was a country marked by constant violence. Crime, armed groups, and news of fresh killings were part of everyday life. Margarita understood something very clearly: if they stayed, her daughter would never have a safe future. So she made a difficult decision: to move to the United States. It meant starting from nothing, no money, no support, in a foreign country, speaking a language she didn't know. But for her daughter, she was ready to sacrifice everything. When Anna Maria was about 6 years old, they moved to Miami. Despite her education as a teacher, Margarita couldn't find work in her field. To support herself and her daughter, she took a job as a cleaner. It was difficult, exhausting work, far from the life she once knew. But it provided the most important things: safety and a steady income. The first years were not easy. A new country, a different culture, unfamiliar rules. But little by little, they adapted. Anna Maria grew up to be a calm and hardworking girl. She did well in school and never caused trouble at home or in class. Teachers often held her up as an example for other students. By high school, she was already a member of the National Honor Society. At South Miami High School, she became the captain of the girls' soccer team and played as the goalkeeper. Sports were an important part of her life. In addition to school and practice, she worked part-time at an office supply store. She wanted to help her mother with expenses and was also saving for her first car. After several months, she achieved that goal. Buying the car became a symbol of independence and the beginning of her adult life. Her personal life was going well too. In late 2001, she started dating a boy named Eddie Nelson Portu. He went to the same school, was the same age, and the two quickly formed a strong bond. Their relationship was calm and respectful. They spent a lot of time together, supported each other, and talked about their future. Anna Maria dreamed of joining the United States Air Force. After her service, she wanted to get an education and become a school principal, just like her mother had once worked in education. It seemed like her life was slowly falling into place. That's why the evening of April 27, 2002, was supposed to become just another happy memory. Eddie invited her on a date. He chose a popular local restaurant. They had dinner, laughed a lot, and later went dancing. It looked like a perfectly normal evening for two teenagers in love. When they stepped outside, they decided to take a short walk before heading home. But they never reached the car. 5 young men surrounded them and ordered them into a van. Resistance was useless. The boy was hit. The girl was forced inside. They were pushed onto the floor so no one could see what was happening. The van pulled away. The attackers demanded money and valuables. Wallets, phones, jewelry, bank cards, PIN codes, they took everything. One of them stopped at an ATM and withdrew money from Anna Maria's card. Then the van drove on. The ride lasted about 20 minutes. During that time, the attackers mocked the couple, beat Eddie, and humiliated them both. He tried to resist, but every attempt was met with more blows. He could hear his girlfriend screaming, but he couldn't help her. When the van stopped near an empty shoreline, Eddie was dragged outside. They beat him, kicked him, and stabbed him several times. The pain was unbearable. He understood that if he kept resisting, they would kill him. So he pretended to be dead. The attackers believed he was no longer moving and returned to the van. Eddie thought they had left Anna Maria there too. But the vehicle drove away, with her still inside. Bleeding and barely conscious, he began crawling toward the road. A passing driver spotted him. After hearing what had happened, the man immediately rushed him to the hospital. Doctors counted 14 stab wounds on his body, along with numerous bruises and fractures. But he survived, and during those hours, there was only one thing on his mind: Anna Maria. He hoped the police would find her alive. He believed the attackers might have left her somewhere along the road. But the truth was far worse. While Eddie lay in a hospital bed, connected to IV lines and pain medication, the van carrying Anna Maria kept moving. No one knew where she was. No one saw where they were taking her. And no one could help her. The vehicle drove north, toward Palm Beach County. The roads became emptier, the streetlights more scattered, and the surroundings darker. Houses grew rare. Long stretches of empty pavement stretched ahead. That was exactly the kind of place the attackers were looking for. At some point, the van turned off the road and stopped near a concrete wall in a deserted area. There were no cars, no pedestrians. Just darkness, silence, and 5 men who had already decided her fate. 2 of them pulled Anna Maria out of the van. She could barely stand. They dragged her toward the wall and forced her to her knees. They told her to beg. Anna Maria cried and pleaded with them to stop. She said she had a mother waiting for her. She promised she wouldn't tell anyone. But her words meant nothing to them. One of the men pulled out a gun. He pointed it at her and pulled the trigger. Click. A misfire. He tried again. Another click. Nothing. Anna Maria screamed in terror. For a moment, it seemed as if fate itself was giving her a chance. But the third shot worked. The bullet struck her, and she collapsed to the ground. That was the end. The attackers left her body by the roadside and drove away. Within a few hours, they were already in Orlando, trying to act as if nothing had happened. Meanwhile, on the morning of April 28, police launched a major investigation. Eddie, lying in the hospital next to his father, told detectives everything he could remember. Despite the pain and shock, he described the attackers, their behavior, the van, and the sequence of events. Investigators began checking transactions from Anna Maria's bank card. That's where they found their first real lead. Money had been withdrawn. ATM cameras captured the face of one of the attackers. On top of that, a call had been made from Eddie's phone to a number registered to an apartment in Orlando. Police, along with FBI agents, went to that address. Inside the apartment, they found a man named Victor Manuel Caraballo. During the search, officers discovered Anna Maria's bank card, her driver's license, wallet, and cell phone. Eddie's wallet was there too. It was direct evidence. Victor was arrested. Soon after, his brother Hector was taken into custody as well. Investigators kept moving. In another residential complex, they located the van and arrested another suspect, Cesar Antonio. Within hours, the identities of the remaining participants were confirmed. They were 16-year-old Jesus Torres Roman and his uncle, Joel Lebron. All 5 were arrested. Police expected long interrogations. But things went differently. Jesus was the first to be questioned. He didn't even wait for the formalities to finish. He almost immediately confessed. He said that Anna Maria had indeed been shot. He confirmed that they had beaten the couple, robbed them, and abused the girl. According to him, they had made a pact not to talk about it. But he couldn't handle the pressure. During his confession, he cried, shook, and looked terrified. He was the one who pointed police to the location where Anna Maria's body had been left. Officers rushed there immediately. They found the body quickly. According to those at the scene, her hands were folded as if she had been praying. It looked as though, in her final moments, she had been begging for her life. Medical examiners discovered signs of assault and DNA from multiple men. It became key evidence in the case. When the body was taken to the morgue, Anna Maria's mother was called in to identify her. The woman was shattered with grief. She had fled Colombia to escape violence, believing that in the United States her daughter would be safe. But reality proved otherwise. The investigation continued. In one suspect's apartment, police found weapons. Later, experts confirmed that the gun used in the murder had been recovered there. Soon, police made it official. 5 people were under arrest. Prosecutors stated that the couple had not known their attackers. They had simply been in the wrong place at the wrong time. The suspects were transferred to the Miami-Dade County Jail. And that's where an unexpected twist happened. Jesus, who had initially appeared broken and scared, changed quickly. He began bragging about the crime to other inmates. He described what had happened, laughed, and tried to impress them. But the reaction was the opposite of what he expected. Even inmates serving long, serious sentences were disgusted by what he had done. Talk of retaliation against him began to spread. Because of threats, he was moved to another facility. But even there, he didn't stop. He knew Eddie was the only surviving witness. He understood that Eddie's testimony could send all of them to prison for life. So Jesus started looking for someone willing to kill Eddie. He offered $12,000. But the man he spoke to turned out to be an undercover agent. The attempted hit on a witness became an additional charge against him. Meanwhile, the investigation moved forward. At the first court hearing, all 5 defendants pleaded not guilty. Some of them began blaming each other. Several claimed that Cesar had been the one who organized the attack. But prosecutors already had strong evidence: DNA, confessions, stolen items, and the murder weapon. Even though Eddie could only confidently identify one of the attackers, the case against the entire group moved forward. Prosecutors used the felony murder rule. Under this law, anyone involved in a violent crime that results in a death can be held just as responsible as the person who actually committed the killing. That meant all 5 could face equally severe sentences. The trials were supposed to begin in the fall of that same year. The charges were among the most serious possible: first-degree murder, attempted murder, armed kidnapping, sexual assault with a weapon, and robbery. But the proceedings didn't start on time. Defense attorneys requested that each defendant be tried separately. The court agreed, and the case stretched on for years. For Anna Maria's family, that meant only one thing: justice was delayed, while the pain remained with them every single day. The first to stand trial was Victor Manuel Caraballo. He was 39 years old at the time. He claimed he had not shot Anna Maria and had not taken her life. He also denied assaulting her. But forensic tests showed that his DNA was present on the victim's body. Victor tried to explain it with a strange story. He claimed that he had been alone and that his DNA had somehow ended up on her body by coincidence. According to him, that meant he could not be guilty of assault. The jury didn't believe a word of it. In April 2007, he was found guilty. The jury recommended the death penalty. The judge agreed. 2 months later, Victor was sentenced to death for the murder of Anna Maria. In addition, he received 4 life sentences and 2 30-year terms for other crimes connected to the case. The next to be sentenced was Cesar. He received life in prison. Then came Jesus. By the time his trial took place, he was 18 years old. In court, he admitted that he had distracted a security guard while the others abducted the couple. He described watching the abuse and admitted that he had simply laughed. He also confirmed that he helped clean the van after the crime. Eddie testified in court and identified Jesus as one of the men who had beaten and stabbed him. The judge sentenced Jesus to life in prison without the possibility of parole. A few years later, trials began for the 2 remaining defendants, Joel and Hector. But the case took an unexpected turn. In 2010, the Florida Supreme Court overturned Victor's death sentence on technical grounds and sent the case back for further proceedings. Joel's trial began on September 10, 2012. But soon after, the judge declared a mistrial due to procedural errors. A new trial was held. On September 28 of that same year, the jury found Joel guilty on all counts. He was sentenced to death. That left Hector. The evidence against him was weaker than against the others. In the end, He accepted a plea deal and admitted guilt to second-degree murder. Hector was sentenced to 50 years in prison. Later, he claimed he had agreed to the deal because he thought it meant 30 years. He blamed a misunderstanding between his translator and his attorney. The court rejected his argument. Before the final sentencing, his lawyers asked for a life sentence instead. But the judge ruled otherwise. Hector was sentenced to death, along with 6 consecutive life terms. It seemed like the story had finally reached its end. But the legal battles continued for years. Each of the convicted men had the right to appeal. And many of them did. In December 2017, the Florida Supreme Court reviewed Joel's sentence. His death penalty was overturned. The reason was technical but important: the jury's decision had not been unanimous. Under the law, that made the sentence invalid. The case was sent back for further proceedings. But public records never clearly showed the final outcome of that process. A similar situation happened with Victor. His death sentence had already been overturned back in 2010. But even without the death penalties, all of the defendants were already serving life sentences for other crimes. In reality, that meant only one thing: none of them would ever walk free again. 5 men who destroyed the lives of 2 young people would spend the rest of their days behind bars. Anna Maria never got the chance to live out her dreams. She wanted to serve in the military. She wanted an education. She wanted, one day, to become a school principal. She just wanted to live. But her life ended on a night that was supposed to be nothing more than a simple date. For her mother, it became a painful reminder of something cruel. Sometimes people cross oceans, borders, and entire countries to escape violence, only to face it again in the place they believed would be safe. Anna Maria's case remains one of the most brutal crimes of its time. A story about a random encounter with pure evil, and about how one ordinary evening can change everything forever.